so much. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the last panel session of this 2-day conference, GBS Moving Forward. What is the future of shared services? Your moderator is no stranger to the industry. She comes with vast experience and is a strong advocate of 5 Ps in her personal success. I am pretty sure you have heard of her success stories at various events and platforms. She is the founder and Chief Executive Officer, Brand International, and Chair of Talent Development Committee for Outsourcing Malaysia. None other than Dato' Munira Loy.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone, or I think it's still good morning, and thank you very much on behalf of Outsourcing Malaysia and PCOM for inviting us or myself, to become the moderator for this interesting as well as the insightful session. So once again, welcome to the Ignite GBS 2021. So allow me to introduce the learned as well as the experienced panelists, though my short introductions will not do justice to the wealth of experience, right, they have. But nonetheless, let me just very quickly bring up and introduce the 3 panelists. With me is T.S. Koi. He is the Senior Director of Dell Digital as well as the General Manager of Dell Cyber Jaya. So TS actually leads the Dell Digital Infrastructure Operations globally, and he's also the head, as mentioned, of Dell Digital Global Center in Malaysia, and he's responsible for driving the digital transformation for Dell internal businesses. So in addition, he heads up the General Manager role for Dell Cyber Jaya site, overseeing site level operations and development. So Quay brings with him more than 19 years of IT experience across enterprise application and infrastructure management in both internal IT and outsourcing service industry. So he's very passionate in driving digital transformation across application transformation, IT transformation on multi-cloud strategies and workforce transformation, and to provide the best end-user digital experience for Dell internal stakeholders. So with that, welcome T.S. Koi. And the next we have as a panelist is actually Raj Chowdhury. Okay, and I hope I pronounce it right. And Raj is actually the VO of operations with Amex, and he is also represents one of the board of directors and member of the country's executive team, and leads an array of operational activities to put customer first, fulfill a wide variety of servicing requests, and keeping customers' accounts running smoothly, and facilitate customer spending. So he's also focused on expanding the use of robotics and automation across various processes, supporting B2B and B2C customer, and certainly a keen enthusiast in bringing digital revolution in servicing world. And Raj focuses on empowering teams to drive process optimization and standardization and making hub digital ready. And of course, the last panelist is none other than Prakesh Nagarajan, and he is actually now the Vice President for the Economic Prosperity area, and he brings with us 18 years of senior management experience in strategic business development, product development, and general management expertise in Southeast Asia, North America, Canada, across varied organizational structures, may it be MNCs, GLCs, and SMEs. Diverse international management expertise in building and growing business revenue, marketing strategies, human resource management, and operational excellence. So that's a mouthful for introducing the three panelists. And I'm sure as we get to into the discussion, you will certainly be able to see the wealth of experience that the three gentlemen is going to bring across. So with that, I'm going to very quickly start off the session, and I kind of want to just kind of lay the foundations around the fact that the post-COVID-19 pandemic appears to be has been very disruptive for a lot of industries and a lot of organizations. But we have certainly seen in the last 20 months, the global business services and the shared services organizations has essentially flourished. All right. And but one thing is very clear: conventional wisdom and what were deemed as best practice no longer holds in today's new norm. And we hope in this panel discussions, we get a chance to hear from the panelists, to understand a little bit more about, how do we face the challenges that is ahead of us, and primarily how do we anticipate the changes, and how do we need or what do we need to do, to adjust ourselves and adapt ourselves to the new norm. So my first question will be to focus on the industry perspective first. So I guess these questions will be essentially directed to Kueh as well as Raj. My first question, perhaps we can start off with Kueh, is this. It's from an industry point of view. So what do you see as the most challenging factor during the post-COVID, and what are the things that we kind of need to be mindful of in order for us to thrive and sustain the unprecedented scenarios?
Yeah, hey, thanks for the GBS Forum to invite me, together with all the prestige panelists today. And obviously with Dr. Monira, you are the pioneer of the GBS. Very delighted to be here today. And well said about the pandemic, have created a lot of situations and impact to the business, right? While there's an impact on the business, we think that, as a recovery, there's a surge needs for the companies to accelerate digital transformation, right? To find a new business streams for them to recover, or even to be better than the business they have run before. And we see that, GBS has a lot of opportunity to partner with the business, right? How to transform the legacy business to adopt more technology. It might be as simple as adopting RPA for better productivity, or even accelerate their data science practice for better decision-making, predictability of the future business. And then associated with actions to recover the business to be much more cheaper, much more faster. What I'm trying to see is that how GBS can transition from a very traditional support partner in the past, right? We support the transactions and all that, but we can elevate to the digital partner, right? To elevate the business together with the industry so that we can recover, as seamless as possible, or even take a quantum leap to the business opportunity that we haven't seen before. And I can give you a context about how Dell has been going through that, although we are the internal COE for the larger Dell business. But you can imagine that Dell also has been going through a digital transformation journey to bring the legacy system to the future state. So again, we also have been transformed from a very IT operations center into a digital partner, right? We have expanded our software engineering in the last 2 years so that we can join the journey to develop the software, to develop the cloud automations, to invest into cybersecurity, playing all this strategic level to help the company to achieve to the North Star. And I believe all the GBS have the equal business opportunity to do the same to help the business to be greater. That's my perspective.
Right. All right, thanks, Kueh. Raj, what about yourself? I mean, I guess, we know that, traditionally the shared services as well as the outsourcing is mainly for back office operations, right? So what's your thoughts about, the need to to increase our diversifications across the service models and locations to reduce resilience risk. I think it's kind of riding on what Quay essentially has mentioned, right? I think it's important that we need to pivot in the GBS industry. We kind of need to accelerate the digital transformation initiatives and looking at our service. It's no longer transactional, but looking in towards collaborations and partnership with the business. So is just back office operations enough today, and how do you create value?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Singdatu Louis, and it's great to be here. So diversification, absolutely, it's necessary. I think the past 18 months or so has taught us that you can't be too concentrated in one location or too concentrated in a particular way of self-servicing that has traditionally been the case. I think let's put a customer angle to it. How does the customer want to be serviced in the first place, right? And I think a lot of it is today has become more self-service. The digital penetration has increased significantly more than maybe in 2019, initially by force, but that has changed the habit of our customers, right? They don't want always to get in touch with someone. So when we think about the servicing model, you kind of think of it at three different levels, right? You kind of think of A, at a self-service option, can this be done automated end-to-end without human intervention? B, does it need a human intervention, and it's very minimal with largely automated? And the last, which is where the more complex pieces of work happen, where you can kind of have human interventions into it. So that from a servicing model, and if you take a customer-centric view of it, I think that's how we should always think of work. And the other aspect of this, at least within Amex, we realized we don't have to be limited by a location, right? I mean, traditionally, our sites in US, sites in India and in Philippines were known as the hubs for the US market. But as the impact happened in India and Malaysia was kind of better placed, we realized we could service anything from anywhere, right? So one of the things we are now pursuing is to have a servicing model that's agnostic of a location, and where you kind of get work done globally, and you prioritize based on the customer journeys that are more critical versus journeys that can take a little longer, right? So you kind of also have to take a very 360-degree view of how you service, and that in turn helps resiliency, builds in redundancy, because now I'm not limited to saying, oh, if something happens to my site in India, then this work is impacted. We've now cross-trained people on some work across from KL till Argentina. So we have people in KL, in India, in Brighton, in Argentina, who can do that same work. So it makes me feel more safe and secure that even if something happens in one site, I can get work done at another site, right? So it's a combination of things that will help us diversify. It'll help us service our customers better. And in the long term, when we put the human capital on a task, they are more focused on what's critical, what's complex, and that is another way that we'll create value for the customers and for the organization as well. So we kind of get the repeatable, simple tasks to be done by the machines and keep the more complex tasks by the humans, and we kind of create this nice balance between man and machine.
Right. Thanks, Raj, for the sharing. And I think from what we are hearing from your perspective, it's at the end of the day, it's to focus on the customer experience as well as understanding essentially what your customers want. And I think everything starts from there, right? Yeah. And it's everything is seamless in as far as location is concerned. All right, you can kind of do everything or anything. Regardless of the location. Now, I think I just want to ride on what you have mentioned about the human capital component. And I kind of want to ask another questions. Prakesh, will come to you. I've not forgotten about you. But I think you've touched a lot on a very interesting aspects of human capital, which is really about, I think all of us are challenged in terms of assessing the right talents. And likewise, technology undoubtedly becomes very critical in this whole transformation roadmap for any organization, maybe Dell, Amex, or even for my organization, you know. So what about providing, so how do you therefore ensure that the employee experience it's becomes one of the strategic objectives of your organizations, right? To ensure that the people's well-being and to allow the employees to thrive in the workplace. Perhaps we can hear about, you know, how Amex you know, focuses on this as part of your strategy, right?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. In Amex, we've recently launched a whole new way of working called Amex Flex. And it kind of divides everybody into three models, right? First is there will be some roles that need to happen on site, right? Which we just cannot happen virtually, like let's say global security or some of the other IT, you know, stuff that needs to be on site. So you can't be anywhere, so you're there on site. Largely, our operating teams are going to be in hybrid model or 100% virtual model. And in hybrid, what we are saying is that we need you in the office for a couple of days, but the 3 days you work from home. We don't need you there. And then we will allow a large portion of our colleagues also to be 100% virtual. And it'll depend on the role and how the performance is, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of flexibility today that we are creating for everybody at the company, the way they operate. Why we are saying hybrid? Because something that we realized at Amex, and I'm sure it's the same for your company and for Dell, is companies thrive on culture. Companies thrive on collaboration, on relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, that really is the DNA of a company. It's the interpersonal relationships that we build. A lot gets done over lunch versus in a meeting sometimes, right?
Right.
And that's the difference. So we want to keep a hybrid model where we don't lose the connect, but we give flexibility. But some people just want to may work 100% virtual because of family reasons, because of something else, and we allow that as well. So with that now coming in, I think our ability to tap into talent pools, which were, let's say Amex is in KL, so which were outside Greater Klang Valley, opens up, right? People don't have to be in Klang Valley to be able to come to the office, right?
Right.
And even with the hybrid, we are saying for 4 weeks a year, you can work from anywhere. So you create more flexibility options. It attracts a larger pool of people, and it diversifies our pool of talent that we source for, right? And I think it's become a great hit within the company. People are absolutely loving it, that they're not limited on how they operate.
Right.
And so for now, let's say someone stays in Ipoh, knows they just have to be in KL for 2 days to be in the office, and then can travel back and continue to be in Ipoh, where frankly speaking, cost of living is lesser. And we're not adjusting salaries to that extent. We still continue to pay as we were paying. So it's a win-win across the board, and it creates greater retention, it creates greater loyalty, and they're focused on what's the most important thing, which is our customers and our shareholders. So you kind of give them less to worry on some front, so that they can spend their time on things that will bring us greater ROI. So I think it's a game changer now.
Right. Thanks, Raj. And Kuei, you have any thoughts or anything that you can share from Dell's experience as well?
Yeah, well said, Raj. Right. It's all about the flexi culture we want to provide to the employees so that they can unleash the potential, they can do their best performance for the business. And even before the pandemic, we are already a strong believer of work from home, given the work-life balance that we want to provide to our employees, because we are all working in global, different employees working on different hours. So flexi was already the key. But pandemic just accelerated that. Even the desk mount jobs that we used to be working in the office, we have made that to become work from home. So with that evidence, we almost be able to work from home 90% of all these global jobs. We have further accelerated the permanent work from home flexibility. So we roll out the work from home package for whoever want to do that permanently. But same as what Raj says, right? Collaboration is key. Nothing can replace the team bonding when people come together for a short meeting for the best idea or innovation. So we leave it to the business unit to decide, within a week, how many days that they want the employees to come back just to interact on a periodic basis or on an ad hoc basis as they want to plan it out. So we leave it to the business for all these flexi cultures that we want to implement for the future. And of course, for that, we remodify our office structure. All right, we kind of shrunk the workspace, but we increase the collaboration space for the benefits of team bonding and collaboration.
Right. Thanks, Kueh, for the sharing. And I think that's directionally the trends, right, that we're kind of seeing in the GBS space. And I kind of like what Raj has mentioned about companies thrived on culture, engagements, the focus of future of work, as well as the focus on, while it's important to focus on the customer experience, they are more critical now is to start looking at the employee experience agenda as well. So thank you very much, both the panelists. And Rakesh, we're going to kind of steer these discussions a little bit from just looking at from an industry perspective to that of the agency perspective. I think you would have heard from both Raj as well as Kueh, about why they were a strong business case in terms of why they have chose Malaysia as the destination, all right, in terms of delivering their services and all that. So coming to Rakesh, I guess from my perspective, there's a lot of emphasis now today on digital and technology for the nation's development, and as announced in the 12th Malaysian plan, by our Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri, right? And the 5 years plans theme, it's really about prosperous, inclusive, sustainable Malaysia. Was primarily aimed to steer Malaysia out of the COVID pandemic effect and put the economy back on track. So coming from IRDA's perspective, what are the initiatives that you have to attract investments and advance Malaysia's digital economy, especially in Johor at this point?
Thank you, Dato' Munira. Very good afternoon to fellow panelists, Raj, and also Kueh, and everyone that's tuning in live. Thank you for raising the question, Dato'. I think it's a very pertinent one, and one which IRDA has actually been focused on ever since the beginning of the year, or even from the start of the pandemic, to be honest. We welcome the announcement by the Prime Minister, who's also our co-chairman. But I think the emphasis here is there are several initiatives or programs that are actually being carried out by IRDA, specifically in Johor. And all of this is in line with the announcements that were made even in the previous budget for the year 2021. So a lot of the initiatives have actually commenced from the beginning of the year, and a lot of focuses and emphasis is there to actually build on the very points that the industry captains have just raised, which is to ensure or to enable a sustainable ecosystem, particularly in the context of human capital, and also ensuring that organizations are able to transition into that digital space, into that virtual space effectively. Now, we all know that transformation costs a lot of money, right? Digital transformation in particular is not just about having the best of technology and the best of connectivity, but also ensuring that the human capital and the talent that is working in the organization is able to successfully transform into that digital space. Driving productivity is key, ensuring that deliverables and customer experiences are not hindered by the transformation process is vital to ensure the organization is able to meet its value propositions and its delivery of services to the market. So where IRDA comes into all of this, earlier this year, we were actually allocated 28.3 million ringgit to actually pass down to industries across all promoted sectors, which also includes global business services in Iskandar, Malaysia, in ensuring that at least the cost of that transformation to some degree and extent is absorbed jointly between the government and also the industry. I think this transformation is something that the way we look at it, it's not something that's a one-off thing. It's something that's going to take place over the course of at least the next 2 years, where industries prepare themselves. Iskandar, Malaysia in particular, has a lot of plans to increase connectivity, especially digital connectivity, in ensuring that we are able to provide that infrastructure, both hard and soft, to attract investments into this region. While I do agree that the future is virtual, the future is digital, we cannot run away from the fact that it's ideal for businesses to locate themselves at a place which provides them with the necessary ecosystem enablers. And I think that's the focus that we have, IRDA has, to realize this objective.
All right, thank you very much, Prakesh. Coming back again to probably looking at it from the industry perspective, right? Due to the pandemic, the GBS companies are kind of working in a hybrid model, as mentioned earlier. And what are some of the criteria for companies to decide on the locations to establish their operations? Maybe that could be an insights for people like IRDA, right? You kind of want to look at, I believe Dell and Amex they're not present in Iskandar today, right? So what do you want to look at? What are the criteria that are very essential for setup of a GBS operations?
Do you want to go first?
We in the past, I think in the last 10 years, we're very established in terms of all the location that we operating based on the strategic alignment with the business, as well as where's the talent pool. I think that's the key. All right. So Malaysia obviously have started as a manufacturing business, and then slowly we kind of have grown the supply chain, all the support business. And then, 15 years ago, when Cyberjazz started, exactly is like what Iskandar is going through this process. We felt that the IT talent pool is very centralized in KL, right? Especially the 24/7 operation. That's why we came down and we create a digital capability in KL, right? In Cyberjaya. So I guess a lot of the criteria, where we want to consider in the future for any of the companies is about the accessibility to the talent pool, the alignment to the business, and whether you already have a critical mass in whichever location, so that you grow from the foundation. You don't just go to grow from a scratch. So that's where we are looking at. And in the future, is very much about where is the R&D capability, where are the innovation capability, more than just a technology operation, right? So I think that is a strategic advantage or the strategic criteria in the future that any other company would decide where to put the new location.
Thanks. From an Amex point, Dr. Louis, so we've been in Malaysia for 40 plus years. Of that, I think we've always been headquartered in KL, right? We haven't really been outside of KL. But a couple of things. Firstly, I think in Malaysia, we've been blessed with infrastructure of the internet, which is amazing. I think I see what's in India, what's in the Philippines. And we've been blessed with that. And I think it's been our best kept secret that came out last year. But we should continue to invest and move on to 5G as and when we can, right? Because others are catching up. But that said, for us, we service 20 countries in multiple languages. So for us, ability to source talent in multiple languages becomes key. So talent pool is a big consideration for us. I mean, in the business we are, GBS is 80% people. So ability to source talent, great talent in the needs of the organization makes a big difference. Needless to say, create office infrastructure at reasonable rates is another good question to have, right? And for example, right now we are right next to KLCC. The public transport around this place is just right. It makes a difference to our frontline agents, who may or may not buy a car, to say, I have an easy access to the public transport to get to work. And so those are some considerations that come into play when we choose a location. And we start thinking of where to build your hubs, right? So I mean, all of those factors come into play. So when we were moving office a few years ago, we looked at different places, but we realized, you can't be more central than being in the KLCC block, which has accessibility to just about everything. And we got it at an amazing price. So it was okay. So those are things that happen. A lot of graduates come out in the greater Klang area. So the talent pool's already there. They don't have to make a massive shift in their lives. So they move from college and they have an establishment of, let's say, a place or so, and they just start coming to work. It just makes easier for everyone on board.
Right. There you are, Prakesh. You're hearing from the two great organizations that has employed, a huge number of workforce, right, in their respective locations. So coming back again to what Edar's role, right? So while you hear what essentially the players or the industry requires, and you also seeing more and more companies are focusing on transformation and change in the way that they are operating models in order for them to be sustainable. So with all these factors, how do you see or what initiatives do you think the government needs to adopt, right, to suit this, to match this or facilitate all these players, companies, right, and to attract them for investments into Malaysia, or primarily at least to Iskandar Puteri?
I think the key focus here is definitely ecosystem, and we have, I think the underlying message in all of this is the shift of the ecosystem from being a physical ecosystem into one that's a digital ecosystem. And I think the focus of the government in terms of facilitating that would come in several forms. Perhaps you no longer need as much square feet as you did in the past, but you need accessible square feet. You need square feet that's connected. And I think these are emphasis that we will continue to work in Iskandar Malaysia. I'm sure some of you may have heard, at least for those of you who are familiar with Iskandar Malaysia, that IRDA is embarking on a multi-billion ringgit project to improve connectivity through a flagship infrastructure project known as the BRT, or the Iskandar Malaysia Bus Rapid Transit. IMBRT actually aims to connect Iskandar Puteri to the greater parts of Iskandar Malaysia, and that should greatly improve connectivity. It's one of those new modern ways of commuting around town. And we will, as I mentioned earlier, continue to emphasize our facilitation grants and also provide enablers to ensure that the human capital aspect of development continues to flourish. Last year, the federal government invested 28.3 million ringgit in Iskandar Malaysia, and indications are there that this will continue. A pledge of 100 million ringgit was actually made to be rolled out over the course of the next 5 years. So I think all of these are very exciting. It's exciting because we, as usual, we continue to work with relevant agencies. This is not just an IRDA initiative alone, but I think IIBV and GBS Iskandar play a critical role in developing this sector, and continue to work with all the relevant agencies, both federal and the state of Johor, to ensure that we are able to provide that ecosystem to the industry, led by the industry, and also driven to ensure that the right the right platform is there for development and attraction of those investments into Iskandar.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thanks, Prakash, for sharing and what is in store for us in Iskandar Puteri, right? So we're kind of looking forward to having that ecosystem ready, right? So for us to probably have our next delivery site as an option to be in Iskandar Puteri. So I guess from a industry perspective again, we know that clients' expectations of the GBS organizations it continues to rise, right? The stakeholders are expecting a lot in terms of greater efficiencies and continuously improving our service effectiveness. So we've heard from the Kueh as well as Raj earlier, some of the key initiatives that is happening now, to kind of create that differentiations. We talk about collaborations. We talked about using IT as an enabler to drive your digital transformation agenda, and the focus on employee engagements to ensure that people are essentially motivated and taken care of in adapting to the new norms and all that. But my questions to panelists is, so how do you move forward to continue to deliver value, and how do you see represent the key focus area for GBS as we see ourselves in the next probably 2 to 3 years down the road? What would that be?
If I can get get my opinion,
right,
to be further debate or discussed.
Yeah.
Well, I think the GBS is already on the right journey of being a digital partner, right? Driving a lot of technology adoption. I think what is required is really about the current workforce reskilling, upskilling, right? While we are looking at, we want to acquire a new talent pool with all the new skill sets and all that, but we must not forget about our current workforce that has been the last many years very operational centric. How to bring them into the strategic level. So I think there's a lot of focus, whether it's a partnership with HRDF or the internal investment to provide a new role or provide a new skills development trainings and all those kind of stuff. It need to happen in this couple of years so that the workforce can continue to be productive, continue to be relevant to the future trends of the GBS demands that's coming. And then secondly, I think it is also very important, where I have a lot of conversation with the government agency, is about how do we increase the R&D capability of Malaysian in the workforce, right? We always use technology or implement technology from foreign companies. That's absolutely okay. But can we have all the Malaysian workforce starting to go deep in terms of the R&D and implement or invent something of IP, intellectual property that is belongs to Malaysia, that demonstrate the innovation capability of Malaysia, where the future value is, all right? So that we can be more competitive, in terms in the global, comparing to other, world-class GBS. If I have to put that into the future, right? That's my view.
Thank you. Right, Raj, your thoughts?
Thanks. So this is a very good question. And in Amex, our brand promise is backing our customers to ensure that they lead the lives that they want to, right? And I think the way the service industry is going to evolve is moving away from being reactive to being more proactive in journeys that the customers will have. An example I can say is that, so as we automate the simple task, right? And I said that earlier, we get involved in the more complex pieces, right? some of the things that we do, right, when there is a disputed transaction on a customer's account or a potential fraud transaction on a customer's account, can we get to a point where I leverage artificial intelligence to review customer's account and say, this customer doesn't spend at this location, potentially that is a fraudulent charge, or that the customer will dispute this charge. Can I do that before the customer says that, or customer says that out? So I think we have to change the way we are servicing today, from being reactive to being proactive. And if the customer is contacting us, right? So let's say the customer calls into our contact center. Can I understand the true need of a customer and say, this is what the customer may ask for in the immediate future? So we have a metric within our servicing sites called a customer first resolution. And that typically says, if the customer called in today, what percentage of our customers call back in the next 2 weeks? And we really want to bring that number down, because if the customer is calling me too frequently, then I'm not able to anticipate the total needs of this customer.
Right.
So I think that's where the transformational shift will happen, where we move from the transaction to the relationship, and you kind of have that engagement where we literally know the customer, and it's leading to creating more value generation through various ways, right? But the shift is going to be in that way, where you preempt customer needs. And it reminds me what I think it's a quote that I've heard often associated with Steve Jobs, which is almost like, don't give the customer what they want, but give them what they haven't thought that they will want.
Right.
So I think that's where we can come in with a lot of data analytics, a lot of artificial intelligence, and create a servicing model that doesn't exist today.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Raj. And Prakash, what's your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think it's very evident, isn't it, from listening to the industry, that this is the way forward. It's all about a new customer experience, and I think if I put the two and two together, Quay spoke about human capital development and ensuring that talent is able to live up to those new service levels or new service standards that Raj just illustrated to all of us. I think that's critical, that's key. And I think the success formula is ensuring that the human capital or the talent that we have, whether that's new talent or talent that's within the organization at the moment, is ready to step up to that role, is ready to step up to that challenge. I think these sort of value experiences are nothing new, especially in North America or the other parts of the Western world. However, the one thing, if anything, the level of expectation of customers has been accelerated in Asia to be able to look for organizations that provide them or empower them with that sort of service level experience that is more that is more independent of them having to walk into a premise to be able to get anything done. Right. I think people have become more virtually savvy. Right. They become more mobile savvy, and that service level expectation from a mobile delivery standpoint, I think that customer expectation has just grown significantly, if anything, over the course of the last 2 years.
Right. Thanks, Prakash, for your sharing. And I wish we could have another extended, but I think we are standing in a way between us and lunch, and I think that and we don't want to be that part of it. But thank you, panelists, for your sharing. It's great insight. But and I think some of the key learnings we've got from the sharing is that we are very clear. Digital transformation, which used to be a smart strategy, now becomes is a survival strategy, right? And I think it's really important for us to ensure that the workforce adopt the digital adoption. It's becoming high, and at the same time looking at partnerships and collaboration as the model of creating value, whether it is with your key stakeholders, whether it's internal or external customers. And I kind of like what Raj has mentioned, It's about shifting that mindsets from being very transactional in nature. How do you deepen relationship? How do you shift your customer management mindset, right, to become more proactive rather than reactive? And of course, all this is riding on using technology, right, as the enabler. The AIs and the analytics to help us to predict the customer's behavior. And of course, we've heard a lot around the fact that the workforce needs to be reskilled, ongoingly reskilled, to be able to match the future demands of not just the domestic markets, but essentially the global market as well. And I think it's important to enhance our capabilities, right, beyond just customer management, right? It's beyond that. It's about going into R&D. It's about innovation capabilities, so that we continue to become more sustainable way forward. So with that, thank you very much again, Kueh, Raj, and Prakesh. It has been a very, very insightful session. And thank you for your time to participate in this session. So with that, I will pass it back to the MC. Thank you very much.